Supreme light, peace, blessings, and harmony, family. This your boy Imhotep the Great, and welcome to an episode of Fundamental Vibes with Imhotep the Great. I am Imhotep the Great, and again, welcome. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. This is episode 1.3 of this particular series we're doing over here at Fundamental Vibes. What we we dive into books, articles, just anything, or maybe just having a high conversation about the fundamentals of life, the fundamentals of history, the fundamentals of our story, really dealing into Aboriginal or Aborigine history, or the Negro history of the earth, or the Hebrew history of America, or us being American Aboriginals, the history that's been stolen from us as a people. So we dive there. Anybody who's watching this, who's outside of our particular tribe of people, which I would say the Black Americans, who are a part of a bigger tribe of people, who are the Americans, which are also the Jamaicans, the Afro-Brazilians, the Barbadians, the Afro-Mexicans, anybody on this side of the Western Hemisphere who actually they classify as Black or a Negro, who is in the continent of America. So yeah, if you are somebody who's outside of that, still peace, blessings, and light to you. Information and light, we share that regardless. We're all having a human experience on this earth. So thank you all for tuning in. With that, we want to also shout out to the other half of the hemisphere. If you're watching that and you're from Africa, the other half of the world, the east side, what I would say, of the world, of the hemisphere of the world, we want to shout out to our brothers and sisters over there. We do understand that oppression is throughout the world. European imperialism, that's what it is. We're going to call a spade a spade. It's everywhere. And I want the Africans to always be understanding. I think it's important for us to understand true American history, and the history of the American Negro, the American Black man, the indigenous man of this continent. It's important to understand our history, first of all, so we can start healing with it. But it's also important for us to understand it because the Africans, we all can learn from it, so the Africans can know, you know what I'm saying? Because that, Europeans, what will happen, they will have been and took it, and you don't even know you in your own continent. And this is how deep things can go. So when they're dealing with Asia or China specifically with a lot of deals, don't let these people trick y'all guys out your land, obviously as they have done in America. They always try to get divide and conquer between us and the Africans. So I just want to get my little piece on that, but I also always want to send peace and blessings to the Africans. I always want to show love to Africans because they also are fighting European imperialism and are also victims of European imperialism, just like the Negroes here in America. So on this channel, again, we dive into fundamentals so we can build the foundation of life. Every man deserves to know their history and who we are, and we are a magical people. Through all chaos and whatever, we still here and we still are surviving, and we are here and we will be here. So with that being said, we're dived into two books. Again, 103 amazing facts about the Black Indian. Then after that book, we're going to dive into Allegory of the Continents, volume 1, 2, and 3. 103 facts is going to give you some of the facts, or the amazing facts about really our history here in this landmass in North America. Is going to give you that history that we are the Indians. Our whole history is under Indian history, and things will make sense. When you talk about the slave trade, yes, it was an Indian slave trade as well. Indians was traded first before they even brought any other people to this continent, and the people they were bringing were European slaves, either whether they were black, white, any type of color. When we get deep into that particular history, but and they was found they had trade agreements with some African kingdoms and colonies. They was getting people from Africa, but it was not on this mass scale. It really was the slaves was being traded throughout the American continent, and then they were being shipped over to Europe because that's who held the colonies. The colonies was held by the Spanish. The colonies were held by the English. The colonies was held by the Portuguese. The colonies was held by the French and the Dutch. So when we're looking at this over here, what happened in America in the time of colonialism, we got to remember that the slave trade did happen. It is an Indian slave trade, but they had told you the slave trade in reverse. They have told you the slave trade in reverse. And people say, well, why would they do that? Because it plays into their hand. You know, they got your land, they got your land, and they got your resources, and they sell these resources on the worldwide market to get, and they get $millions, and that's what their empire is built off: the exploitation, the suffering, the just a demonic act. It's demonic. And there's no other word to really put that at. I mean, psychopathic, sociopathic. It's a lot of different words you can put that as, but that's one of the main words to put that as. So, yeah, it's important for us to get this information out. So, I don't want to go on too long. We just started out. Always peace and blessings before we get into another episode. But we're going to dive into this book again. We stopped at 30. So, we finna get to 31 of 103 amazing facts about the Black Indian. And again, after we finish up this book, we will go into the book Allegory of the Continents. I love that book, Allegory of the Continents, because it's actually going to show you a visual how did the American look like. So to stay tuned for that one. Y'all really want to see that book, Allegory of the Continents. It's going to show you how the American look like in the races of men. And we're going to go into that too before we start into that book. But this whole episode is going to be one big episode, because with 103 facts about 103 amazing facts about the Black Indian of the Western Hemisphere, that's going to actually give you the facts, a solid foundation of what we're talking about. And these facts are true. These facts are true. I have researched it. I have been researching for a while now, and I think it's time for us to know these things. So this book, 103 Facts, is going to give you that foundation. It's going to give you the facts, big facts about who we are as a people. You know, who we are as a people, and it's also going to tie a lot of things together for you. But then we get an Allegory of the Continents. Then we also going to get a visual, so you guys can know. You can actually see, okay, if you're saying we Indians in this, you'll be able to see. And shout out to Karimio. That's why I was introduced to the book, Allegory of the Continents. It's a 3-volume book that goes into just artwork in these different churches. And we'll get into all that when we get there, but it's an amazing book. So I want to shout out to Karimio Ahu, if I'm saying his last name right, or Ahu. But thank you, brother. It's very much thank you for being a beacon of light, a beacon of understanding, and just for that. I know a lot of brothers and sisters who everybody trying to getting our history back. This is real time, this real life, y'all. So getting our history back, they taught us we was from Africa, so some people didn't know how to keep going, but it's not about the ego. It's about the truth, and it's Earth story. It's not the black man's story. It's not the white man's story. It's Earth's story. It's Earth's story. This happened on the Earth. It happened on the Earth. So you got to keep going with the truth. And actually, all the truth is one truth. They just have it fragmented. So we take them fragments and put it back. Resurrect Asar. Resurrecting Asar soul. The different pieces. And it all comes back together. So the Moors have a piece. That's a piece of Asar. The Israelite, that's a piece. The history in the Bible is a piece. You know, the Black Indian history is a piece. African history is a piece. The Egypt in Africa, the old world, the old Jerusalem, the old Babylon, that's a piece. The history in the Middle East, everything is a piece. The Buddha being in India and worshipped in East Asia, East Eurasia, is a piece. So every organization has a piece of it. And that's why even when the Moors get into laws and everything like this, that's a piece. It's thousands of years of history they're taking away from us people. So we can't keep arguing among each other at such a crucial time. Because y'all know these people got plans and they're going to move forward with their plans whether we like it or not. So we have to start having a conversation. And we got to build the fundamentals. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the book, 103 Amazing Facts of the Black Indian. We're going to pick up where we stopped at last time. I think I read 30, but we're going to go over 30 again. And let's go ahead and get into it. All right. Number 30. Native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, built pyramids and pyramid mounds. Just like the ancient Egyptians, This anonymous comparison of both cultures from opposite sides of the world is because they were genetically linked. They both are the same people. That is a correct fact, you guys. The Mayans, now they're studying, and a lot of European archaeologists are getting into it, because you got to understand, it's one part of European archaeology who goes with the lie. It's another part of European archaeology who really are people who study archaeology, and they really want to know the truth, and they really want to know this. And when they start finding it out, they start finding out that this was America is a Negro continent. But you gotta understand, the people in power have been lying about this for about 100 and something years. They've been putting money behind this, and anybody ostracizing anybody who says this, because they raping the land and pillaging the land for all the resources. So this is big. So the archaeology going into the Mayans, the Aztecs, and everything, they're finding that the cultures of the Mayans and the Aztecs are one and the same. I'm not the Mayans and the Egyptians, excuse me, are one and the same. They're finding that the step pyramids were being built in America before the step pyramids was built in Egypt or Kemet. They're finding that out. A lot of people will say, well, this is Egypt. This is New Egypt. Remember, the Hebrew people left out of that continent over there. They left out of Africa. They left out of Egypt. A lot of nations left out Babylon, that area of the world where all the different nations, the mixture of language, that confluence of Africa, Eurasia, Africa and Eurasia, or Africa, Europe, and Asia come together, which is now Iraq, all that stuff, what we call today the Middle East. We built that first. So the Egyptians, the Americans are the Egyptians, and they left. They went into Egypt and they left after the fall of Egypt, and many nations came back, and many nations are of American stock, who are also, you are calling many nations to be a part of the Middle East. All the way through Asia was American stock, but as it got bad in Eurasia, a lot of them came back to America. And when the Hebrews, or the people who left Egypt, first came back to America, the one belief in one God spread throughout the whole continent. And that's how you get into the world religions, when you start getting into Judaism, and you start getting into Christianity, and you start getting into Islam. It spread. This one world started by Akhenaten. A lot of people say Akhenaten is Moses, and a lot of the information proves that Akhenaten is Moses. The Bible is Egyptian mythology, and Egyptian also historical accounts. That's their story and events, but it's been put in a different language to be preserved. But this story goes all the way back from the time of Lemuria. So the Egyptians, or this American stock of people who went over to Egypt and built Egypt, along with the Cushites, or we will say the Africans. And this is why the deception was easy to do. When we found history, it was easy for them to be able to do this kind of play, because the African history supports the being in Egypt too. But it's funny that the people in America, ever since the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, has always had this connection with Egypt. Our people always have this connection with Egypt and the Hebrews and Israelites. And even the Hebrews and Egypt have a connection. Even when you're looking at the Bible, even in mainstream, that they say the Hebrews built the pyramid. The Hebrew people built the pyramids. But they say slaves was it. So they say the Hebrew people actually built the pyramids. So I just wanted to dig on 30. 30 is a major point. Because understand it, the Egyptians and the Hebrew people are the same people. They're the same people, the Mayans. Hebrews, Egyptians, Aztecs, any American Indian tribe of people. You always talk about American nations. America is a continent. Think about how Africa, you have many different nations now. Of course, these nations came by the dividing of Africa through European colonialism. But let's say still, it's today. They're still different nations. They have a lot of the Aboriginal people of Africa have took on this, just like in America. Just the same thing in America, but they have took on, okay, the identity. I'm Nigerian, I'm Ghanaian. We survived through anything, y'all. So they have took on that, but it's many different nations and states in Africa. You have Nigerians, Ghanaians, Liberians, Kenyans, Congolians, Zimbabwe, the people of Zimbabwe, Madagascar, even when you start getting to North Egypt now, North Africa, I mean, you get into Moroccans and different type of people. So just like that in Americas, it's different nations and groups of black people. You have the Black Americans, the Afro-Brazilians, the Jamaicans, the Haitians, the Black Argentinians, the Black Colombians. This is our continent, people. The people who colonized has told the story backwards. And it's a worldwide deception. But everything works in that. Everything works in order. It's a flow to history once you understand the history. And it's important for us to understand that. So no, just to be on point 30, the Egyptians and the Egyptians and the Hebrew people and the Americans, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Lemurians, the continent that was before even America became the light of the world. Before the America became the continent that was the light of the world, because prior to Christopher Columbus, know that America was the light of the world. And before America got past the torch actually was the continent of Lemuria. That was the torch, but Lemuria sunk 25,000 plus years ago. And there's been other little minor disasters, but Lemuria sunk. And the light went over to the Americas. Yes, Africa has civilization. The mountains of the moon. Africa has a story of civilization too. A beautiful story. Everything's connected, y'all. We are people that's been here on Earth since the beginning of time. We're just coming out the illusion with this information. But the American nations and American tribes of people, because let's say Black America is one tribe. We got the same customs and understandings. Yes, we got different regions and stuff within America, but we are one tribe of people, Black Americans. And that's claiming even our people who are Indians, Black Indians on the reservations to this day, because they still exist. We still exist in that capacity. But the Haitians, our brothers and sisters, we have to always make sure the Haitians are all right. They're Americans too. The Black Dominicans, they're Americans too. The Barbadians, they're Americans. The Guyanese, the Guyana of America, of South America. The Costa Ricans, the Black Costa Ricans, Black El Salvadorians. All these countries is in America, and it's important to understand that. The Black Guatemalans, Black Belizeans, all that's in America. So that's important. So when you hear things, when you hear Hebrews, Egyptians, Mayans, Aztecs, Moors, all these are ancestrally American people. And since everybody was mixed together, that's when it becomes confusion. Because all these cultures that was in America because of the slave trade is now one beautiful mixture of all these different ancient cultures that is anyways genetically still America. America has a story on Earth that's being hid. Our continent has a story on Earth that's being hid because it's ours and because people are wicked. And that's the only thing that you come to, and we got to accept that, people. So 30, know that the Egyptians and the Hebrews, the Israelites, all these people are the same people, and the story just flows once we get in the flow. Now, he going to 31. He probably going to go into it. 31. During the time of Pangea, a Greek word that means all one. All the continents on the planet Earth was one mass of land. People lived and thrived during the time of Pangea. Remember, I told y'all, Lemuria. People lived and thrived. People been on Earth forever. European gonna start his history 6,000 years. This is a large explanation to why pyramid builders in the Eastern Hemisphere and pyramid builders in the Western Hemisphere have cultures that are incredibly synonymous. Yes, because we are our Aboriginal people or original people. Remember, we say Aboriginal is slander. We're just using the term Aboriginal right now for people can understand what we're talking about. And also because European imperialism in their books, they call us Aboriginals. But it's really origine. We are the American origine. But It's an original, just originally Negroid on the earth in every continent: America, Africa, Australia, and Eurasia. It's an originally Negro. So the cultures are linked, and our cultures are going to be similar. The continents continue to move. Some move 4 inches a year. The continents will one day become one mass of land again. Interesting. The continents are currently separated at this time. However, the genetic link of beings from Pangea never parted. That society that was one, and the major society of Pangea was Lemuria. And Lemuria sunk in the ocean. And now, it's funny because the Hebrew story, which also is Egyptian mythology, Isis, Ra, and El, the Hebrew story tells the story of Noah. Noah being saved because God destroyed the world. And after the flood of Noah, Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, which just tells the story of the survival of the people who survived from the time of Lemuria. With Shem being the American continent, Ham being pretty much the African continent, and its associates, or let me say, Shem being America and its associates, Africa being Ham and its associates, and the souls who are from there, and Japheth being Eurasia, and the people who live within that, and the nations that sprung up from that. You get it? "32. The term Moor was applied to dark-skinned brown people and reddish brown-skinned people who were not only indigenous to Europe, but to West and North Africa. Even black Indians of the Western Hemisphere were also dubbed with this title. 33. Indigenous black Celtics, indigenous black Britons, indigenous black Portuguese, and indigenous black Spaniards, all also known as Moors." Let me go back. The term Moor was applied to dark-skinned, brown-skinned, and reddish brown-skinned people who were not only indigenous to Europe. I want to go back because I don't want to just read over that, because that's important for us to go everything we're talking about, because this is a big one. In the I guess since he going into this history right here, he going into these amazing facts. Make sure you guys go like, share, and subscribe. He's going into these 103 amazing facts. And this is what we were talking about starting this episode. This is the perfect time to talk about the confusion that be in the conscious community. And he's breaking this down for you. You know, so let's go. 32. The term Moor was applied to dark-skinned, brown-skinned, and reddish brown-skinned people who were not only indigenous to Europe, remember I said it's indigenous men on every continent, but to West and North Africans. Even black Indians of the Western Hemisphere was also dubbed with this title, Moor, Lemuria. It was also like how synonymous they'll call everybody Negro or black today, Moor. But it specifically was big in Europe. So you could be from America anywhere, depending on the European perception of you. He not deciphering your tribes. He just called you a Moor. So you had Moorish Jews. You had or Israelites, the real Israelites at that time, Moorish Jews and Israelites before the Inquisition. You also had Moorish Islamic people who was into Islam, which is also a Hebrew religion. Remember that. Moorish is a Hebrew religion. It's one of the 3 Hebrew religions: Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And you also had Moorish Christians. So, yes, so that's the true statement. Number 33, indigenous black Celtics, indigenous black Britons, indigenous black Portuguese, and indigenous black Spaniards, all also known as Moors, had a long time knowledge of indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere. These Moors were well informed of the different customs, traditions, and languages of the natives of the Western Hemisphere. These dark-skinned European Moors were used as buffers by pale-skinned Europeans to help colonize the New World. These indigenous black Europeans, aka Moors, not only solicited the New World to pale-skinned Europeans, but also waged war on indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians. This is the truth. This one we say is not the black man history, it's not the white man history, it's the earth history. And this is a fact of history of the earth, and that's why the history get confused and the history is being hid. But we need to know this, because if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. Everybody, all skinfolk ain't your kinfolk. And not saying the Moors as an organization, because again, Moors was a title to many people in Europe and many different, even the own Hebrew people in Europe who knew they was genetically linked to the Americas. They were being called Moors. So we're not talking about Moor in this thing. I'm talking about the Roman Catholic Church and the European came to be what now Caucasians came into power when the black people used to rule Europe and Asia. For many wars over there. Again, remember I told you in part 1, America is an island. America was over here chilling. You got to know how to get across the Atlantic and the Pacific to get over here. Unless you finna walk through all the way up through the Bering Straits and stuff. Yeah. But since we have been on Earth everywhere, the origine Negro or the Naga have been on Earth since the beginning of time. Since we have been on Earth, we know how to get around the waters. The people, the blacks in Europe knew it was black people over here. A lot of them were ancestry from here in Africa. A lot of these people were the Hebrew people. But when the Inquisitions came and the Roman Catholic Church took power and started wars and started taking these people property and torturing them and making them go over to the European version of Christianity, once they started forcing them to go over to the European version of Christianity and going through a Messiah and going through Jesus and Jesus and taking their lands and their belongings and torturing and killing and burning them at the stake, if they even thought that they practiced their own natural spiritual systems, because these people wanted the power of the mind, body, soul, and the land and your possession. Some of those people, a lot of those Moors, fled to America. Some came to America fleeing conflict. Some came with the minds of colonizing and helping the Roman Catholic Church colonize the earth, for everything had been stolen from them and took from them and all the royal, which was nothing to us really. We just wore gold and all that stuff. It wasn't above our soul. See, today the money, the gold, and the things get in front of people's soul. Back in our people was royal people, y'all. We're not talking about people who was just living in TP's huts. Even when you see our people living in nature, and we were living in nature, it was kingdoms all around. That's the picture they don't show you, because they always want to show a tribal version of you so you could think they're really the civilized person, and that's just not the case of history. So when they stole all these things from these human beings, a lot of them became bitter and angry. A lot of them became rich as well, and they went with the European or the Caucasian person who was in power, and they helped colonize America. But it had been a relationship between the Americas, North, Central, South, and the Caribbean islands, and Africa since the beginning of time, because we knew it was there. And it also was a connection between America and Australia. And it also was a connection between America and Eurasia. The black people who had been in Eurasia 10,000 years plus and ruled Eurasia. And it was a fight for power within Eurasia between the Roman Catholic Church, or at that time the Roman Empire, who later became the Roman Catholic Church. So we still under the Romans to this day. It was fight between those two powers in Eurasia. This Moorish, black, African, Hebrew hybrid. And we say Hebrew, we're talking about the black Moors. Because again, Islamic Moors, because again, that's a Hebrew religion. That's a Hebrew religion. Islam, that's around the still dealing with Moses, the Mosaic law. The Moors, the black Christians who all knew ancestry was from America, but they have been up there so long, so you gotta think it changes. So again, so that's a fact. These people, a lot of our own people, helped colonize this landmass. You know, it's a strong possibility. Christopher Columbus. I haven't read. I've seen pictures of it. I done heard it. I haven't really went and got that information myself. But there's a lot of say Christopher Columbus was a Moor. So it be your own people, and it's very prevalent in this society, because when you get truth tellers, So you can know all skin folk ain't your kinfolk. Everybody ain't out to help you. It help us as a whole. Some people out just for their own benefit, and they'll take you down for their benefit. There's a lot of that going on this earth. There's a lot of that going on. And they'll tell you anything to help these people because a lot of them believe they lost belief in themselves, y'all. We can't never believe in ourselves. All of us ain't, but there's a lot of them who look like us. And will sell you out in a minute, and that can be if they got $1 million or right now $1 billion, billion, a million, and it's some niggas who only got one who will sell you out. If they got the opportunity, they would right now, but that's not all our people. So that's just a balance we gotta have with it, understanding, because obviously a lot of us ended up in the ghetto in the hoods of America. So a lot of our ancestors were the ones who was fighting against it, who really wasn't down with that shit. At all, and we just don't know it was all this war and stuff like that because wicked people do things like that. They don't let you know your history. So yeah, that was a fact. The Moors helped, and a lot of even our own indigenous tribes, Black Indians, helped as well. And I think he's gonna get into that in 34. Let's go. 34. Certain Black indigenous Europeans, aka Moors, that went under such titles as clergymen and European nobility, shared a common consciousness with pale-skinned Europeans. That common consciousness being that the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, were untamed heathen savages. So a lot of the people who have became indigenous to Europe, a lot of the people who were from Africa, and even some of our own people who were ancestrally from America, who have been in Europe for all these hundreds of years, when it was time for them to wage war on America, they had the consciousness of a European, and they went against you because now they felt like the European way of life was the way of life. And that way of life is nothing. It's do what the fuck you want to do. Your law is no law. But what the law, man and his power give, not the law of the Most High. Their law is not the law of the Most High. So they would kill, rape, savage. And they took over our people and our empires, and they destroyed our empires, not without a fight, y'all. This was a really big fight. This is one of the biggest war. This is the biggest war in history. It's the biggest war in history. We still in it. So a lot of those Moors, not all of them. And this is when that's when it get, again, it's so many layers to it. Not all of them. So when you're hearing people calling people Moors and stuff like that, no, fuck Moors. I mean, you might as well let that go because you have Moorish blood. Because even if they did that in the end, they seen what the game was. A lot of them. Don't get me wrong. Some of them had that bloodline. But I would suspect probably is in a lot of high places still today. You never know. It might be something we showing a lot of love to. And you never know how this game goes. It'll go deep. The Mayans said they were going into the illusion, and this is the illusion. But yeah, a lot of them dark-skinned people, rather who come from the European ancestry, who came over here to colonize, they probably in high places. So all skin folk ain't our kinfolk. So yeah, 34 is a fact. Certain Black indigenous Europeans helped definitely colonize this part of the earth with America, our homeland. 35. Both dark-skinned and pale-skinned Europeans who were either Celtic, Briton, Gaelic, or what have you, who were fleeing religious persecution in Europe and were struggling to preserve ancient traditional customs, dubbed pagan ways, upon arrival to the New World, ran to the bosom of the Black Indian nations indigenous to the Western Hemisphere soil, who still held on to and were practicing traditional spirituality. Both cultures were different. However, both was able to relate to each other gods. Black Indian nations and different clans of native to Europe. Both shared a common spirituality that centered around the forces of nature and the honoring of the ancestral spirits. It's important to know, let me bring the map up real quick because this is very important. It's important to know that in Europe, this side of the world, it was a war going on. This place right here, this little place right here, now Vatican City is somewhere up in here. I don't know where it's at. But this little place, let's go really who it is. Yes, this place right here, Vatican City, this controls the world. From this little place right here in those days, a lot of the Caucasian and mixed and even some black people were being pushed up into nobility, into kingdoms, and they became king and queens like King Ferdinand and Isabella. They took power from the Moors, or the black people who was ruling Eurasia. Now we ruled all over here. We ruled all of this. We ruled all of this. Let me see. Oh, I ain't got the map on. Let me go back. Oh, thankful. I thought about that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So again, from this little place right here, let me go back to the Vatican City for you. The Roman, it used to be the Roman Empire. Now it's the Roman Catholic Church. They are still a part today of this problem because they still own the stocks and bonds and a lot of stuff within America. A lot of stuff they hiding from Egypt and America and all these things. So, and all these different nations and places, which is our ancestral truth and our ancestral empire. They don't keep your foot on your neck because you're weak. They keep their foot on your neck because you're powerful. So, with this, we ruled all of this. We ruled Europe. We ruled Eurasia. We even ruled over here. But over here, these people were running from over here from religious persecution because they were telling the people, the ancient indigenous people of this land, the blacks of this land up here, get down or lay down. You can't practice being a traditional. You have to accept Christianity or nothing else. Don't get me wrong. It was black Christians as well too. That don't necessarily but they was practicing traditional still spirituality with them. Maybe even they was Christian or Islamic or Hebrew. Even they was practicing religion. A lot of times the religious was the front because everybody couldn't even understand the ancient traditions and the higher things. A lot of things we're talking about, the chakras and things, we get into that. Our ancestors were still tapped into that up to the 1500s. And they just took all these different principles of Egyptians, what they would say gods was just really is Egyptian principles or principles of the mind. So they took that from being different principles like Shu, which is air, and Tebnut, which is water. And they turned all that stuff into just one God. Yahweh. Which really goes back to the Egyptian neter or nature. It's just nature. We all exist within nature. We all are in the womb of nature. But the Roman Catholic Church didn't like that. So with that being said, they were on people's ass all throughout here. All throughout this landmass, all throughout Europe, they was on people's ass. So people were fleeing over to the American continent. Remember, the black people, the black nations, or the Negroid nations, at one time it was one earth. They knew how to get over here. They already knew how to get here. It wasn't a secret on how to get here at all. So they knew how to get to North America and South America. So a lot of them came over here. Some of the blacks came over here with the white, what we call the white man or the Caucasian, and the Semitic races. It's a conglomerate of people against us, and they done raped our land. And they done raped our resources, and they making money off of them every day. It's a conglomerate. Yeah, it don't get this deep without it being a conglomerate. And this is actual history, y'all. So when he's saying this is not a conspiracy, it's actual history they don't teach in schools, but other historians teach it. They're not going to teach it. So a lot of the different races of men, blacks, the Semitic, and the Caucasian European, came over here. Some came over here fleeing persecution, and a lot of the blacks, who we call Moors, some say we got Moorish ancestry too, mixed in with the Native Americans. They came over on their own record. Some came as slaves because the Roman Catholic Church was in power. A lot of Europeans came as slaves too. But a lot of people was fleeing Europe because it was warfare over here. The Roman Catholic Church and the Caucasian and the younger races, the Semites, were taking over. Them in the higher ranks. See, the black people was over here trying to help the people who wasn't into all that. We were educating people about the true nature of life and the true nature of the universe. That's what we was on. But everybody, some people just want to do what they want to do. But what you give out, you get back in return. And the Most High is going to show who's in control because they can't stop the earth from heating up. You can't stop the star series from coming back and the star system is lying there. You can't do that. So some people go to just make as much chaos as they can. So yeah, that's an interesting point. Some of the Moors mixed in with the Americans, and the American Indians embraced them. The original Americans, the American Indians, embraced the Moors, and they came one, and they just blended in. They was all black already, and again, some of them was already ancestral American, and some of them had African ties. It was one people before Pangea. Remember that. All right. 36. Certain Moors helped to navigate Christopher Columbus' voyage to the New World. He wasn't lost. He knew exactly where he was going, simply because of who was on the boat with him. Again, certain Moors helped to navigate Christopher Columbus' voyage to the New World. He wasn't lost. He knew exactly where he was going, simply because of who was on the boat with him. So he had Moors with him. Remember, at that time, the Roman Catholic Church had took over. They were taking people's property. They was torturing you. They was burning you to the stake if they suspected you of practicing any ancient spiritual system. They were killing you. This ain't new to them. That them forcing people to what to do with their health. This is not new to them. This is what these people do. So Moors helped. They brought a Hebrew interpreter with them. Christopher Columbus had a Hebrew interpreter with them, and a lot of people say Christopher Columbus was a Moor himself, and his image is showing he was a Moor. So, yeah, the story is deeper though. So we gotta understand all skin folk ain't kinfolk. If they don't respect the law, they don't respect human being. You don't respect nature. You don't respect love. You don't respect joy. You don't respect peace. All skin folk ain't your kinfolk, and we just gotta start getting there. We don't understand truth, liberation. We gotta get to that. But yeah, the Moors, other black people helped, in this. But also, it was a large population of Moors who didn't help, who were being persecuted, who was being destroyed, who was running, fighting for their life, who came over here to assist in building a new society. Because after that kingdom or those different nationalities and nations and stuff fell in Eurasia, they had to run and get on. And those are some of the people they were bringing in the slave trade, the Roman Catholic Church and the European imperial governments when they came to colonize. They were bringing they Moorish captives, and they were even hunting the Moors over here, who they suspected of being of Moorish descent, who had came from Europe over to America, because the Roman Catholic Church and the new kings and queens of Europe, of France, Spain, and England had became bloodthirsty. And some of these happen to be our people, well, Negroes too, or the Aborigine people or Origine people. So yeah. 37. The U.S. government is a plagiarized copy of a Black Indian governmental system, the Iroquois Nation. Again, the U.S. constitutional government is a plagiarized copy of a Black Indian government system, the Iroquois Nation. I checked that out, the Iroquois Nation Constitution, and it is similar. It's just a plagiarized copy, as he stated. I'm gonna go deeper into it. I ain't really get a chance to research it deeper, but that is a fact, though. I checked that out. So yeah, they stole everything from us, because a lot of our people was trying to help build this new government, because a lot of the Indians here came to the conclusion that they was gonna have to build a new government because they seen what happened down in Mexico with the Aztec Empire and the true Mayans and all the different kingdoms and temples in Mexico, which the Spanish got to first, which is a European nation. The Spanish got to the conquistadors or the conquerors. A conquistador and a conqueror is the same thing. When the conquistadors and the conquerors ran into Mexico, that's why the Mexicans speak Spanish, because that was the first colonizing nation. Remember, I always tell you, want to know who colonized, go to the language. That was the first colonized nation. So they already had been burnt the temples. They were enslaving the people, sending the people on the slave trade already in Mexico. They hadn't got to North America. So a lot of the Moors, it was easier to get to North America through the currents. A lot of the Moors was here. So they clicked up with the Indians, and a lot of them helped start the United States government. A lot of our people did not agree. This is where the first tribal warfare was coming from too. Some of us felt like they shouldn't be on the land at all and go back home. So, but at the end of the day, it happened. It's just important for us to know Earth history, so we can know at this time moving forward, we have to 100% have our own true independent state, nation state, our own true independent tribe and leadership of our tribe and government of our tribe, just black people, because that's our time for it to do. 38. The founding fathers did not find anything. They went to Black Indians, the Iroquois nation, seeking assistance to break away from the chief back in England, King George III. The Iroquois nation taught them their system of government. The only part that the so-called founding fathers left out was the matriarchy. Remember, I told y'all in the previous sessions, a lot of our society came through the woman. It's still today. Y'all know black women ain't letting their sons go, at all. Not saying they don't love their daughters. A lot of times it be toxic relationships in that situation with the mothers and daughters, but sometimes it's very healthy ones. Just like father and son, it's some very healthy father and son relationships. And it's important for us to point that out because we all can learn from each other. But it is the toxicity we got to talk about. And it also is the truth that black women ain't putting their son out. They love their babies. And so it comes from our genetic memory. That's why I say that. Everything came from we came from a matriarchy with a paternal balance. So the man had a big role, the man everything, but black men and women, or the originating man and woman, we balanced our power together. So that's how our societies could last for thousands of years. Black Indian women ruled the Iroquois nation. Yup, so again, the Iroquois nation taught them their system of government. The only part that the so-called founding fathers left out was the matriarchy. Black Indian women ruled the Iroquois nation. Most black Indians of the Hemisphere found themselves seduced by European lifestyles, customs, and traditions. A lot of things our people got into too. We got to talk about it. And this one, a lot of the tribal warfare came because now one tribe see you working with the English, we don't like that. So now off with your head. One tribe say, oh, but you're working with the French. We don't like that. Off with your head. And they did divide and conquer. They had a plan in the beginning to get the land, and they made us sign many treaties and stuff to get the land. Then they started reclassifying us. They were taking us as prisoners of war, and then they just labeled us black. Like this has been a horrific thing that has happened on the earth, and it happened. So we got to accept that, but we got to learn its history and move forward. Because the American government is not going to tell you this, because they're eating off your land. That's why they don't respect us. And that's why it's important for us to know their history, because you're going to respect what it is. And if they don't respect it, we respect it. Because as long as we respect it, can't nobody take that away from us. As long as we respect it, pretty much that's what matters. Because once we respect our history, then that's when we can make shit move and make shit shake. They ain't got to like it or not. It's about us loving and being kinder to one another. And understand that shit they trying working with this tribe. Our ancestors tried that didn't work. So we have to show a unified. We have to become unified as one. And understand we're not monolithic. We all gonna think different and be different. Because God made us to be like that, and that's fine to be. And we got to have that matriarchy with that patriarchy aspect, that balance of that divine feminine with the sacred masculine. Most black Indians of the Western Hemisphere found themselves seduced by European lifestyle, customs, and traditions. Yep. When the American Revolutionary War broke out, black Indians found themselves fighting against their own kinsmen. Some black Indian nations sided with the British, while other black Indian nations sided with the colonial rebels, aka Americans. Facts. We was always on the side because we was trying to find a way. What was the best way out? What could we do to move toward the future? And some people felt like the British. Some people felt like the Americans. Or the new American government that was being formed, because we the Americans. The black Indians are the Americans. The European Americans, or the Moors, who was a part of that as well. All this whole new government they were trying to build, because they were fighting against the new colonial government that Great Britain had set into place. The British. 41. After black Indian nations helped to set up the colonial government, America, in addition to help to sponsor military support for the new colonial government, black Indian nations continued to fight and war among themselves, as they did before and after Europeans set foot upon Western Hemisphere shores. Yes, we were still fighting with each other, and that's how we got in this pretty much system broke down, cultural breakdown. And we had wars and stuff prior to this, but what a lot of people ain't saying with our wars and stuff too, it was not as vicious. Our wars didn't go as vicious. Our wars was about integrity and respect. Our thing of warfare, even though we knew we was good at warfare, very like athletic, far as weirdly traditional warfare, very good at warfare. Our punishment, our severity, you know, we gave reverence to all life, and even we still do today. There's a lot of people who are just snapped out of that, who so tapped out, and we are still under the drinking the juice and brainwashed. And we all gotta come from under the brainwashing. But yeah, it was a lot of us warring with ourselves. We was warring with ourselves. 42. Black Indians were not conquered by Europeans or the so-called white man. Black Indians had a rich history of intertribal warfare amongst each other that continued before and after European arrival. The intertribal warfare that existed among Black Indians in the Western Hemisphere was so great that it left them in a state of impotency. With impotency setting in after years and years of clan warfare, in addition to the attraction of European trinkets, customs and traditions, and worshiping of the God named Jesus, all assisted in paving the way for European occupancy of Black Indian land, their spirits, and their minds. It's a quote by a man, I believe he's from Africa. I can't think of his name. And what they say is they brought the Bible, and they said the black man, when the Europeans got here, the black man had the land and the Europeans had the Bible. And they said they told the black man to get down and pray. This was in Africa. And then when he opened his eyes, the European had the land and the African had the Bible. And when I say the African, in a sense, that's just that's the thing for all indigenous people. That happened everywhere, not just in Africa. That happened in America as well. They gave us their religion, traditions, and a lot of our people went with that. And a lot of people went with it for survival. Because at this time, our system had went into system breakdown. People being murdered, killed. They stealing people on the slave trade. They burning cities down. They enslaving us. You know, it was just chaos. These people waged war on us. We didn't start this war. They started the war. But the Most High know the truth. See, the earth know the truth. The earth is a living being. The earth know the truth. The truth is within the earth. They can't take that away. So yeah, it was among us fighting among each other too. The same shit we be doing today. How we can't get along. And we're going to have to vibrate higher and raise higher though. You know, we going to have to do some healing within ourselves though. And it all started by all of us, myself included, doing better. I got to learn from it too, because our people are so sometimes have such a nasty demeanor. You be wanting to get their ass, like you know, just go in on them sometimes. But you have to be you have to be a discipline of self and discipline of tongue, and understand the bigger and greater picture. Understand also that our people have been programmed. A lot of people ain't ready to unplug from the matrix. But politically, what's going on in the world today, Europeans got a different plan, a game plan. So whether you're gonna unplug it by yourself freely, or they're gonna unplug it for you, because what they bring it in, you don't want. So it's gonna come either way, because they moving forward with their paying plans. So understand that. 43. After the colonial government was established, America, Black Indian nations continued to aid the new colonial government with military assistance on other Black Indian nations. Let me read that again. After the colonial government was established, after the colonial government is America, he's referring to United States of America as the colonial government. Let's be clear. After the colonial government was established, the United States of America, Black Indian nations were continued to aid the new colonial government with military assistance on other Black Indian nations that fought against European expansion and taking them off their ancestral lands. So a lot of our ancestors were fighting against it's one book we're going to dive into later down as we stand in this Black history, true American history, Black Indian history, Moorish history, just the history of the original people of America. As we stand into that, we're going to dive into more books. And one book we're going to dive into is Indian Wars and Captivity. It tells of a lot of the wars. So we're going to dive into that too. But yes, it was other Black Indian nations that fought against the other nations, and that helped the United States government with this. So understand that all this is what we had today, a manifesto of a lot of us our people making bad decisions under stress too. It's important to add that it was under stress and duress and tragedy, because all that was going on. Because before over here, a lot of that shit wasn't going on. So it's important to add to that. You know, and we go from the time of Lemuria. It's also important to add that our people been going towards a lower vibratorial rate for a long time. So actually, this is the end of it. Actually, we finna wake up and come out the cocoons. And they know this. They know this. They already have it wrote in history already. They already have came up with a tactic to circumnavigate this. And they got so much slack for it back in 2018 that they had to go away from it. Look up Black identity extremist. The American government, Congress, had came up with a term, Black identity extremists. Because they know what time it is. They know, are we going to start claiming our history back? So they got to call you. They already have tried to put it out. They tried to jump the gun and put it out in 2018. But now, that's how they move through their different organizations. Black identity extremists. Why would you make a law about that? Because they know once you start getting your identity, they're going to start calling it extremism. So we got to understand this. They're fighting. This history is important because they don't want this out. So yeah, unfortunately, as we see the people who fought against it, I hope their ancestors and everybody, this will be a testimony that strategy didn't work. It didn't work. Just like in the 60s, that strategy didn't work. It's benefits from each strategy, but it didn't work. It's time for us to take back our own power and our own control. .44. Let me see how far we in. Yeah, we're going to stop at 45. 44. General Mad Anthony Wayne, a.k.a. the Black Snake, was a Black Indian who served under the George Washington administration. The army of General Wayne consisted of mostly Black Indians in the ranks, as did the entire colonial government army. Besides Black Indians making up the bulk of the new colonial government army, Moors also filled up the ranks. Again, General Mad Anthony Wayne, a.k.a. the Black Snake, was a Black Indian who served under the George Washington administration. The army of the General Anthony Wayne consisted of mostly Black Indians in the ranks, as did the entire colonial government army. Besides Black Indians making up the bulk of the new colonial government army, United States of America, the new colonial government, Moors also filled up the ranks. So you had in this new army of government fighting the Indians who still want to stay on that land, who didn't want the United States government. You had a lot of Black Indian tribes who was representing the United States government. And you also had Moors who were fleeing persecution from Europe, or who really thought that's what it was. It was better to go about their way of life versus the traditions of being in tune with our natural traditions and ways of life over here. So, yep, you had that. But, again, those Moors, those Black Indian who was fighting on the side of that government, and the ones who lost the land, all our ancestors, because now we all mixed up. Mamas and daddies don't get and talk about, well, hey, they put us all under Black. We went deeper into system chaos, and it happened. So, from that being it happened, we just have to understand that, obviously, that didn't work. That wasn't a play. That didn't work. 45. George Washington established treaties or contracts with various Black Indian nations, as well as with the Moors, for military support against other Black Indian nations who did not support occupancy of the new colonial government. What I just said, a lot of our people was not with it. They fought to the tooth and nail, and they were sent to the plantation, and they were sent on the slave trade, so they could be sent to Haiti. They could be sent to Barbados. And this is actual history, y'all. Look up the Pequot Indians. They were sent everywhere, but you had other Aborigine people who was fighting with the American government, who felt that was the best way to go. You know what I'm saying? Obviously. And you also, again, had Moors who was fighting with that. And George Washington established treaties and contracts with these people. So understand this. It was chaos. But it all started from the invasion. And a lot of people coming over to this land. 46. After the colonial government, America was confiscated most Black Indian lands. They were... Okay, now this is an interesting one. Let me read. I want to read this one correctly. 46. After the colonial government, the United States of America, confiscated most Black Indian lands, the colonial government, refused to pay Black Indian warriors pensions for their military support. I said, you see how that worked out for them? These people are wicked. They don't like us. and they got our land still today. And the people, so when you people ride, just like today, there's a lot of people who riding in the media because they get these big checks and they riding for these people and they'll do anything to keep us sleeping. Just believe that somewhere in the matrix, these people are going to help you out, and they're never going to help you out. They're never going to help us. Don't get me wrong, it's other Europeans on this land who are going to have compassion, who will help us. Just regular white people walking around every day who were slaves at first, and this is the best they ever lived because of white supremacy, but who's not conscious and don't know, who's not down with this. There's a lot of white people not down with this shit that they doing. Yes, you can get support from people, but when it's going to get in the gut to getting our truth and doing the work we got to do for ourselves, we got to do it for ourselves. And that's our right and our responsibility. But that's our right. We have the right to liberty. But see, they didn't even pay the Black Indian warriors pensions. The people who fought against the United States government, they've been on bullshit. 47. During the American Civil War, Black Indians joined the Confederate armies in hopes of winning to secure what little ancestral lands they had left. So during the American Civil War, a lot of our Black Indians, again, helped the United States government to secure their ancestral lands. And we see how that worked out today in 2022. I'm just saying, because we got to understand, because there's a lot of people, especially in the media personality, when a lot of people was going at Ye, I see a lot of people going at Ye talking. They don't want to talk about the real problems. They don't want to talk about this big business, because all this slavery and stuff was big business. And a lot of these people we talking about, these certain Revelation 2:9 people who say they are the people but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. These people became filthy rich from where? What did they get all this capital from? They always have been the traders and the navigators. They took that religion, and once we got enslaved, the real Jews and the real Israelites and Hebrew people, America, the American Indians, sections of the Moors, the people who lived in Eurasia and over here in America. Once we got enslaved, they took that from us. So the people was fighting, trying to get their land back, and they was going whatever they seen fit. They just put us in chaos, and it's crazy, y'all. It's sad. So yeah, a lot of our people fought against their own ancestral people, their own American people, to help the government. Everybody, it was each man for themselves, each tribe for themselves. But at this time, again, people, I know it made people angry, but we have lived in peace. Our people have been lived. I want to make note this: prior to all this time on the earth, it's been times we had thousands of years and we lived in peace and love and harmony, and peace, love, and harmony with nature and the universe. This is just a time in life and history. But our people have the ability to be kind to each other, and we have lived in that forever. Besides this little time period we in now today. So I want to make that known too. The history is not always beautiful, pretty, but it happened. 49. Nickajack, also known as Nigger Jack, was a black Chickamauga, a black Indian. The ancestor led raids against the colonial rebel army during the United States of America during the colonial rebel uprising, American Revolutionary War. He fought alongside of the British Tories. His hideout was a cave in the vicinity of what is now known as Chattanooga, Tennessee. In the state of Georgia, in the region known as Cobb County, there's a park, a road, and a creek named after this great warrior. So it was a great warrior named Nickajack. And he fought, he was a black Indian, and I guess I would say with his ancestors too, our ancestors fought against the colonial government, the American Army of the United States. At this time, who was trying to expand westward past the Mississippi. They fought with them. And they also fought during the colonial rebel uprising, the American Revolutionary War. So when the American government was trying to free themselves from Europe. So, yep, man, he fought alongside the British Tories, I guess the British people. And his hideout was in a cave in the vicinity of what is known as Chattanooga, Tennessee. Yep, and Cobb County got a park, a road, and a creek named after this great warrior. That's interesting. You've seen a lot of the Indians are memorialized on this landmass, and we don't even know. Like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, sits on the Black Warrior River, and the name Tuscaloosa is a Black Indian name who fought against the Spanish when they first came on this landmass, and they had ambushed the Spanish back in the 1500s, and that's Tuscaloosa. So Tuscaloosa, Alabama is named after a Black Indian, and hypothetically, not hypothetically, and just so happened, it sits on the Black Warrior River. So the Black Warrior River is named after Tuscaloosa. So, and also the Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the city of Tuscaloosa. There were thousands upon thousands of Black Indians who fought in the American Civil War and in wars before and after this war. Again, let me drink some water, y'all. Thank y'all for rocking with me. We halfway through the book, number 50. There were thousands upon thousands of Black Indians who fought in the American Civil War and in wars before and after this war, who were Black Indians or native to the Western Hemisphere region, but were oblivious to this fact. They only thought themselves to be Negroids. Their parents and their parents' parents, who had lost the knowledge of themselves, tribal identity, in all honesty, simply passed on to the next generation the colonized title of Negro to their children. Thus, an unbroken change of ignorance, not knowing, ignorance just means not knowing, continues to survive. I'm going to read that one last time because it's the last one we're going to read for today. 50. There were thousands upon thousands of Black Indians, I would say millions. There were thousands upon thousands of Black Indians who fought in the American Civil War and in wars before and after this war, who were Black Indians or native to the Western Hemisphere, America, but were oblivious to this fact. They didn't know. Our ancestors, our grandparents, and their grandparents. They only thought themselves to be Negroes. That's what we were taught. That was the caste system. Their parents and their parents, our parents and our grandparents, and their parents, who had lost the knowledge of themselves, tribal identity. But remember, we still have some people who had tribal identity. That's why some people are still, even to this day, our people always run around. I heard I got Indian in my blood. No, you was identified as Indian or indigenous of the American continent, North America to be specifically at one time. We are an indigenous to America. So they simply passed on to the next generation the colonized title of Negro to their children. And Negro changed from Negro, then it changed to Black. Now, Jesse Jackson has tricked you all, tried to trick, assisted. Again, remember the Indians? A lot of Indians is good. That's why I said was helping out. He has assisted, and they have normalized calling you a foreigner on your own land. So now you're African American. And an African American is a Nigerian or a Ghanaian. A South African. A Kenyan. Hell, a Libyan. A Moroccan. Because now it's different phenotypes in Africa besides just the Negroid or the Naga. Yeah. It's an unbroken chain of ignorance continue to survive. So yeah, we're going to stop at 50. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this has been a lot of light for you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this book. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. We got to go deep, man, y'all. We got to know our history. It's important. This is important because we're going to have to build. These people got their plans. So we got to build ours. These people have their plans. And they're moving forward with them. And we're not wrote into those. But God say we are wrote into those. Nature, the Most High, says we are wrote into those. Our ancestors say we are wrote into those. Our souls, our higher selves, says we are wrote into the plan. They better check the facts. They know the facts, don't get me wrong. When we was enslaved on the plantation for 500 years and warfare and all these things, you guys see the history that they're hiding. When all this stuff was happening and we couldn't read, we were being murdered for being able to read. Understand, they went and read them books. They know what time it is. They know. They looked into them Egyptian tombs. They know what it's saying in the Bible, the story of the Bible. The people who was at the top went to the bottom when it come and it's prophesied they're gonna wake up and come back to the top. They were gonna be tortured, societies ripped apart, kingdoms. It was all written. But as above, so below. Y'all, supreme peace, blessings, and light and harmony. Again, people, make sure, again, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. Tune into 1.4. We're going to start at 50. We're going to stop where we left off with this one, and we're going to start the next episode with that. Fundamental Vibes with Imhotep the Great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Enjoy your day, and I appreciate you guys. Azrahi Nation, let's get it. Israel.